Hello, I'm Nora and welcome back to Novels with Nora. Today I have a long-awaited video of reading Blind Date with the Books because I got these back in, I don't even know what month, but like several months ago, and I did a haul of them because it was for Independent Bookstore Day because I did a whole vlog for going shopping for that day, and I got these at an event and I said I'm going to be doing a vlog reading these books, and that was months ago and they're still sitting on my shelves. So today I am finally getting around to opening them, reading them, doing all the fun things, seeing if the blind date with a book experience is for me, because I have been on the book side of the internet for years. Like since I got on the internet, I have been on BookTube and then Bookstagram and then BookTok. So I have just been constantly surrounded by different genres of books and different people talking about different books. So I feel like I know a lot about books, especially when I'm going into books. I know a lot about them before I even pick them up for myself. And so this is a very interesting experience for me because I don't typically pick up books just like on a whim and just like, oh, I've never heard anything about this, let me give it a try. Pretty much every book that I pick up, I've heard someone else talking about, or I've read reviews, I've seen the Goodreads rating, something. So this is going to be a very new experience for me because I know nothing about these books other than the brief little synopsis that was given when I bought them. So without further ado, let's just see what I'll be reading. I have two very fancy blind date with the books here. One is fantasy and one is horror, two genres that I am fairly decently acquainted with. Fantasy for sure, horror I'm just getting into, but I'm very excited about both of these because, like I said, I got them at an event where this is all they were selling at that little booth, where they just had a whole bunch of these. They had a lot of romance variations with like different subgenres of romance, but then they also had some fantasy and horror, which was very exciting for me because I see a lot of time blind date with the books are in the like romance genre, which I think makes sense because I feel like romance is very easy to do like based on tropes, which then it's easier to tell if you're gonna like it, where like fantasy and horror and like mystery and thriller and other genres like that are a little bit harder to do in the blind date category, I guess. But when I saw that they had fantasy and horror, I was very excited, so I bought one of each. And as I'm sure you can tell, they came with like all these little things tucked up in them, but then also they have these little book pages here that give the like brief synopsis of the book. So the horror one says mysterious disease, supernatural threat, and demonization, which I love reading about different like plagues and diseases in books, especially in like a horror sci-fi setting. So this sounds like something that I'm really going to enjoy, and when I saw this as the description, I said, oh yes, I will be getting that. And then everything else about this is just stunning. Now, I will say, something that I noticed was when I picked these up, the highlighter was in there, but then the little card with like the little tabs was added after I had purchased it. So I'm wondering if the color of the highlighter, which then corresponds with the color of the tabs, has something to do with the color of the cover. I'm not sure, but that might be a clue as to what is in here. This is also, they're both hardcovers, but this one's like a little bit smaller. So I have no clue what this could be because while this synopsis sounds like something I'd really enjoy, I cannot think of any books, especially in the horror genre, that I'm like, yeah, that sounds like that's what it would be. So this will be a big surprise for me. And then I have the fantasy selection, which as you can see, the different, see like the pink highlighter within the pink tabs. I feel like there's something going on there. But then the fantasy that I picked says, she has come to subjugate humanity, obliterating any who stand in her way. And that sounds pretty good to me because I was trying to make sure that I didn't pick a book written by a man, just because I know historically for me, books written by men tend to be things that I don't enjoy as much as things written by women or non-binary people. So I was trying to pick things that I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sound like something a man would write. And this, I hope a man didn't write this because I feel like if he did, it might be something that I'm not going to enjoy. But I'm very excited about these. And again, like I said, the pink corresponding with the highlighter and the tab, I feel like there might be something there. And this fantasy one is quite thick, so I'm excited about this. But I again have no clue what could be in here because like I was saying, typically when I'm even like interested in a book, like I see the cover and I'm like, oh, that looks really good, I go to Goodreads or I go to Storygraph or I go to some kind of social media to see what other people are thinking about that book and like read reviews, read the synopsis, see what the rating is. Because even if you're interested in a book and you go to like Goodreads or Storygraph just to like read the synopsis of it, the star rating is like one of the first things that you see. So you can't really avoid other people's thoughts on it before you pick it up, unless you go to a bookstore or a library and you're just like browsing and you pick a book that you've never heard of before and then you read it without looking up a review. But that's not something that I typically do. Usually when I'm going to a bookstore or a library, I have in mind the books that I want to pick up, and they're usually things that I've seen other people talking about or sharing or giving their review of. So this is going to be really quite the experience for me because I have no clue what these books are about. I don't even know who the author is, what the cover looks like, what they're about. So I'm quite excited to just dive in, and I think we are going to start with our mysterious disease horror. So I'm going to start by, I think, taking out all of the little things in here. So first we have a magnetic bookmark that says lost in a book. This is from the Midnight Readers shop. That's the little place that I got it from. And then we have this little card here that says what's included. So it says blind date with a book, from fast paced to a slow burn. Inside could be the best blind date you've ever had. What's included? Book in the selected genre, reading log bookmark, magnetic bookmark, highlighter, annotating tabs, and stickers. And then their social media and everything is here on the back. So next we have the green highlighter. Then we have, oh, the stickers are like stuck into it. Interesting. Oh, they use like little sticky tape to stick the stickers in so they wouldn't fall out. But we have this sticker here that is some cats that says, let's start a cult. And then we have this sticker that says spider silk 100% pure since 1994. And then we have one more sticker up here that's just this cutie little plant. And then finally up at the top we have the reading log. Oh, this is nice. It's very much longer than I thought it was. And it has spot for the title, date, and rating, and then your name and the year, and it's front and back. So this is actually really nice. And then we have the actual book, which I love when they do the wrapping to make it like little like slots in here, and then this paper, which I will be using for my journal. So now I guess let's just open her up, see what's inside. It's kind of like unwrapping a present. Okay, then let's go to the back, see if I can get this paper off delicately. Oh, I can see like a little bit of the cover, like purple and pink, which is interesting because the highlighter on this one is green where the other one is pink. So I'm curious to see what that could mean. Maybe it gets the green at the top. I'm not sure. I really would like to reuse this paper, so I hope I can get it off. Okay, paper is off, and this is all I can see of the book. So I guess I want to see the front first. So I'm just going to tear into it now. Okay. It's by Alma Katsu, which is an author I've really been wanting to read. The Fervor by Alma Katsu. Okay, I'm really excited about this actually, because this is an author that I have heard of and that I do want to read from, and I have not heard anything about this book in particular. The book that I have heard of from her is The Hunger, so I'm quite excited about this. Let's see. We have a quote from Chuck Wendig, a haunting, harrowing slice of historical horror conjured by a masterful storyteller. Okay, so let's read what this is about. So, the acclaimed author of the celebrated literary horror novels The Hunger and the Deep turns her psychological and supernatural eye on the horrors of the Japanese-American internment camps in World War II. Okay, so that alone is something that does sound interesting to me now that I have it in my hands, but if I was reading that just like on a Goodreads description, I probably wouldn't be super interested, so let's keep reading. 1944, as World War II rages on, the threat has come to the home front. In a remote corner of Idaho, Mako Briggs and her daughter Aiko are desperate to return home. Following Maiko's husband's enlistment as an Air Force pilot in the Pacific months prior, Miko, M-E-I-K-O, I hope I'm saying that right, and Aiko, A-I-K-O, again, hope I'm saying that right, were taken from their home in Seattle and sent to one of the internment camps in the Midwest. It didn't matter that Aiko was American-born. They were Japanese and therefore considered a threat by the American government. Mother and daughter attempt to hold on to elements of their old life in the camp when a mysterious disease begins to spread among those interned. What starts as a minor cold quickly becomes spontaneous fits of violence and aggression, even death. And when a disconcerting team of doctors arrive, nearly more threatening than the illness itself, Maiko and her daughter team up with newspaper reporter and widowed missionary to investigate, and it becomes clear to them that something more sinister is afoot, a demon from the stories of Maiko's childhood, hell-bent on infiltrating their already strange world. Inspired by the Japanese yokai and the Jorogumo spider demon, The Fervor explores the horrors of the supernatural beyond just the threat of the occult. With a keen and prescient eye, Katsu crafts a terrifying story about the danger of demonization, a mysterious contagion, and the search to stop its spread before it's too late. A sharp account of too recent history, it's a deep excavation of how we decide who gets to be human when being human matters most. That sounds wonderful. So reading that, again, I love some kind of like mysterious plague and like illness. I really like reading about that. And it sounds like this illness is going to be like a metaphor for racism. So I'm really interested in reading this. Also, this cover is just stunning. I originally said that I wasn't super interested because World War II is just not something that I'm super interested in. I feel like we like go above and beyond in learning about World War II in school, specifically in like high school. So I prefer like other time periods, but this is a time, like this is a part of World War II history that I'm not super familiar with, so I am really actually looking forward to this. And this does sound like really like something that I would actually enjoy and like pick up on my own. So it goes to show that I know my own taste, because this, yeah, I knew that I was going to probably like this. So I'm really excited about this, especially being from an author that I have been wanting to read from, and now I own one of her books. So I would say this is already a win, but let's move on to the fantasy and see what we have there. So I'll start the same by taking out all the little things. So we have the Lost in a Book magnetic bookmark again, and then we have the, oh, this one's really stuck in here, blind date with a book little card, just saying the same things as last time. And then we have, okay, so actually, now that I'm realizing that, the green had nothing to do with the book because this one's pink, which I feel like would fit so much better for this than the green did, but I don't know, we'll see. So we have the pink highlighter, and then again, 3 stickers. We have this one that says, "A book a day keeps ignorance away." I really quite like that one. And then we have this one that looks kind of like a blue jay over a book. This kind of works for the Ashfire King. If you've read that, you know there's like a very prominent blue bird, quite like that. And then final sticker is, again, a plant. This one, these cutie little succulents with little faces. And then finally, the reading log again with the pink tabs. So let's untie and see what we, oh, I'm gonna get it in that. Oh, there we go. Let's untie and see what we have in store for this one. Okay, I'm gonna try and open it the same way I did last time, just trying to be a little bit gentler maybe. No, it ripped a hole again, but it's black and most fantasies are just black, so that doesn't actually give anything away. But taking this off. Okay, and now ripping into the front again. Okay. All right, okay. We have a Jim Butcher novel, Battleground, a novel of the Dresden Files. Okay. Okay. I used to work in a public library, and Jim Butcher was very popular among like the older white men, and he had a very vast selection that I was never particularly interested in, especially like looking at this cover. Yeah, that doesn't really look like something that I'm particularly interested in. Is this like the first in? No, okay. So this seems to be in a series, and it's not, I don't think, the first one in a series. Okay, I was checking this because it does say she, but the synopsis does seem to be about a man. So let's just read what this says. Things are about to get serious for Harry Dresden, Chicago's only professional wizard. Harry has faced terrible odds before. He has a long history of fighting enemies above his weight class. The Red Court of Vampires, the fallen angels of the Order of the Blackened Denarius, the Outsiders. But this time it's different. A being more powerful and dangerous on an order of magnitude beyond what the world has seen in a millennium is coming, and she's bringing an army. The last Titan has declared war on the city of Chicago and has come to subjugate humanity, obliterating any who stand in her way. Harry's mission is simple but impossible. Save the city by killing a Titan, and the attempt will change Harry's life, Chicago, and the mortal world forever. Okay. So I will give this a try. Can you tell I'm hesitant about this one? I just feel like this is not something that I would ever pick up on my own, ever. I mean, looking at the cover, we do judge books by the cover, and this is not something I would pick up, especially being by Jim Butcher, who I already have, I don't want to say I have a history with, but like I used to shelve his books all the time, and I was like, oh my god, this man needs to stop writing because his books are taking up far too much space on these shelves. So I will give this a try, but it does not say what number in the series it is, but it is in a series. So I don't know if it's the first one, because there is a list in the front of the book here about the Dresden Files, and you can see there's a lot of books here, but this one's not listed. So I don't actually know where it falls in the series, and I'm not going to look it up to find out because then I'll see the star rating, and I don't want to do that. I do want to go in blind. However, I do have like a predetermined set of expectations for this man. So I mean, like, I'll give it a try. I will. I feel like this, however, was a little bit misleading. I'm sorry, I can't get over this man on the cover. But, I mean, that is what it says in the description, but it just made it seem like she was the focus of the book, not this man. But I will give it a try. I feel like I'm going to be a little bit confused because it is in a series that I have not read from before. But I'll give it a try. This one I am hesitant about, as I'm sure you can tell, but I will give it a try. I think I'm actually going to start here because as much as I would love to start here, I feel like we need to start here. Yeah, so I don't like procrastinate with this one, so I don't have to get to this. But we will be starting with this. It kind of matches my shirt. It's almost like I knew, but I will be starting this. I'm going to see if there's an audiobook because I find that when I tandem read with the audiobook and the physical, sometimes my enjoyment is a little bit higher, so We'll see. This is also quite a long book. I think it's like, yeah, 400 pages. So I don't know. Here's Jim Butcher. I thought he was older than that, but okay. I don't know. We'll see. I will give it a try. I will keep an open mind and give it a try because the plot does sound interesting, but we will see. I hope that he does not write women in a horrible way. That is my hope for this. So, and if I give this more than like a 2-3 star, I'd consider it a win. So I am going to clean up what I have here from all the wrappings, and then we're going to sit down and start this. Yay! Now that the initial shock has worn off, I feel like I have several more thoughts. First of all, I think it's extra evil that in reading the description that was given for this one, I was like, I tried to pick ones that felt like they weren't written by men, and like, this is all about a woman, so like, I hope that's not misleading. Yeah. Also, I then got the audiobook for this because I'm trying to give it a fair chance. I really am. It is book number 17 in this series. And I do feel like this is a series more of like interconnected standalones rather than like a direct series. I would certainly hope, otherwise I think it's evil that they would give this to me. However, here is my other issue that I have with Blind Date with the Books and why I've always wanted to try them, but I've always been a little bit hesitant. And it's because I feel like sometimes the people who sell them don't necessarily, I don't want to say they don't pick high quality books, but like they go to like a half price books or like a garage sale or like sometimes even the Dollar Tree because they sell books now, and they just pick like what they can get for like relatively cheap and then they package it up. Now for something like this, I'm really excited to read this, and the thing is I would not have bought either of these on my own. I would have gotten them through the library. I would never have picked this up on my own, but this I would have gotten through the library. So I'm still interested in reading this, but I probably, unless I absolutely end up loving it, it's probably not something that I would ever see myself like genuinely owning. Where this, on the other hand, I would never pick up to read. And like, I was talking to my brother about it, and I was like, who knows, maybe this will end up being my like new favorite book. I highly doubt it, but like I'm trying to have an open mind, right? But sometimes it does feel like people who do the Blind Date with a Book as a business, especially because they need to make money. Now I will say both of these books as like the Blind Date experience cost $26, and this book is $28, and then the Fervor was $27, like as like if I was just to buy the book. So technically I am getting a deal because I got the book and all the little things that went with it. However, I find it hard to believe that the people who were selling the books went out to like a Barnes & Noble and bought this book for like the list price. That's why I'm always hesitant. It's because I feel like a lot of times, especially like unless you're like doing the romance, because I feel like the romance Blind Date with the Books are typically more like, I don't want to say up to date, but like they're a little bit more, I don't know. I just feel like with the romance, it's easier to get something you're going to enjoy because romance is romance and has been and will continue to be romance, where like this feels outdated. When do we think this was published? Let's find out. 2018, so not that old, but also like, yeah, kind of. So I just feel like sometimes it feels like you are getting like the half price books clearance section rejects repackaged in a way that sounds more intriguing than the actual book would be. Because like the synopsis that was given for this sound really fantastic. The synopsis that was given actually in this book, not for me, thank you. So I don't know. Also, just like the things are about to get serious for Harry Dresden, Chicago's only professional wizard. I'm really trying to have an open mind. I really am, but this just like I'm going to give it a try. But I'm giving myself full permission to DNF because I think part of this like experiment that I'm doing with these Blind Date with the Books is to see if I will enjoy these books, picking them up with no prior knowledge of them. However, if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to force myself to finish it. So I am going to start this right now. I do have the audiobook and I will give it a fair shot because I do think the audiobook is the way to go. I might read like the first chapter on my own, but like then pick up the audiobook. I don't know. We'll see. But I just cannot get over this man on the cover. This is Chicago's only professional wizard right here, guys. So, and not to hate on Jim Butcher. He's really popular among like the middle-aged man crowd and like good for him. I just don't think that this is going to be for me. But I'm going to give it a shot. I am going to read it. Again, giving myself full permission to DNF because I'm not going to force myself through it, especially being so deep in the series. If it's something that I'm like, I want to get 20% in at least. And then we'll see from there if I'm wanting to continue or if I'm like, no, I can put this down. I've understood what this is doing and it's not for me. But let's just get started with the audiobook and see what we have in store. Here we go. An enemy, capital E, was coming for my city. Yeah. as I was expecting. The only issue I'm encountering is that it feels like it's in a series, because we have just like a lot of things happening here that, first of all, an enemy, capital E, was coming for my city. Gagged. And then we have a love interest already. Her name is Murphy. Also, this is just quite silly. I was about 6'8" or 6'9", depending on my shoes, and Murph had to wear thick socks to break 5 feet even. So you're like a giant. You're 7 feet tall, and she's like 2 feet shorter than you. Crazy. Okay, so that's already something. But then also, I guess they have like, they keep talking about these guests that are on their boat. No clue what that is. And then also, it's just like mentioning certain, like it says, granted the battle harness and the P90 she carried illegally, if that mattered at this point. I don't know what that is. And then it was talking about like different titans and different like magic things. I really am just lost. But I'm also only on chapter 1, so like maybe it'll start to make sense. I'm not sure, but it just is really quite interesting. We've got the Eye of Balor, and she's coming, Ethnu is coming to obliterate them. I just feel like, what is going on here? The writing isn't awful. It just feels, I don't know, like we have, and then the waters of the lake exploded upward as what seemed like a couple of dozen tentacles like the first burst from the depths and straight at my freaking face. Like it just feels over exaggerated, I think is how it feels, and just very much something that like a teen boy would enjoy. So I don't know, I am going to continue reading, I guess, and see if it starts to make sense. But he talked about his like wizard light. He's got a pentacle necklace, which we do see here. So I'm gonna keep reading, and we are gonna see. Now, yeah, we're just gonna have to see. Okay, I am now on chapter 7, which is page 59, which is like 14% through, and I think I'm gonna put this down, at least for right now, and then I can see if tomorrow I decide I want to pick it back up, because here's the thing. I am kind of enjoying it because the plot is definitely very interesting and it's very fast-paced and a lot is happening. However, it's a double-edged sword because so much is happening, and it really feels, this is book number 17 in this series, so much has happened just to even get here, and I'm not gonna go back and read all of those, and I'm not gonna read what comes after this, so it feels like reading this is kind of pointless for me. And also, it feels like this book is like a continuation of where book 16, whatever it was, ended, and this picks up right after that, because it starts and it's like all of a sudden we're just like, the apocalypse is happening and we're going to like fix it, I guess. And so there's just so much in here, and there's so many characters that Harry Dresden already knows and is already familiar with and like knows what they can do, and like we're just getting introduced to them, and I'm like, I don't know what any of these things are. And it doesn't help that a lot of the characters have like 3 or 4 names that they go by, like different like titles, different nicknames and things, and they're all used interchangeably. So I keep thinking that we're just like meeting more and more people, and like we are, but at the same time it's the same people. So it's just very overwhelming to try and figure out when I have no like previous knowledge of this world. And it's set in like modern day Chicago while also having all of these like supernatural beings, and so like it's interesting and fascinating, and like I don't want to say be interested in reading it, like it's not a bad story. The writing I don't love. There's times where he's thinking and he's like, oh that's bad, gulp, and it says gulp, and I'm like, please that is not what I want to be reading. Like it just, he even says up here, "Hoo boy," and then it's the writing just feels like not something that I'm enjoying, and I can see why other people would enjoy it and like really be interested in this, because it's so fast-paced that I can see why you would read 17 books in this series, and I see why he has continued to write them, but it's just not for me. And because I'm not going to go back and read anything else or read anything that comes after this, I don't think that reading this makes sense, especially because if this one starts, at least from, obviously I don't know where the one before this ends, but it feels like this picks up right where that ends. So then it's reasonable to believe or assume that the one after this picks up right where this ends. So like, is there going to be like a solid ending to this, or is it just going to roll over into the next book, you know? And I just feel like there's so much like character development that's already happened. I don't know that this one book is going to really provide any more than that. So I'm going to set it down. I did say I wanted to get to 20%, but again, it's like my thoughts are going to stay pretty much the same, in that it's fine. It's not really for me, and I've never picked this up on my own. And that being said, I wouldn't pick up anything that comes after this or go back and read the 16 books that come before this. So just finishing this really makes sense. No. Is that a good use of my time? No, not really. So I think I am going to put this one down, which kind of sucks because like I am enjoying it and I do want to see like how they end up defeating this like big bad titan that they have here. But at the same time, I don't know that I care because because I am deciding to put this down, I am going to look and see how many books are actually in this series and like what happens after. Because if the series keeps going after this, then clearly they defeat the big bad, they move on. And also because there was no like build up to like, oh my gosh, the apocalypse is coming. It was just, oh my gosh, the apocalypse is coming. We need to go deal with it. There wasn't any like indicator that it was happening. So it just feels very much like this is for readers of the series. And that's not me, especially because all the characters that we're introduced to, we already know them. Or people who've read the series already know them. I don't know them. I have no clue what's happening. So I think it just is in my best interest and the best interest of this book to just put it down. Because I am doing a disservice to this book by just trying to pick it up from right here. Right? And I cannot get over this cover. Like I really think that this is just like the funniest thing. So I think I am just going to put this down and we'll move on to The Fervor probably tomorrow. So I'm probably just going to do that because I don't want to say it feels like a waste of my time, but also it does because it's like the middle of a series. And so I just feel, and I'm not going to go back and read it. Like I've been saying, I'm not going to go back and read the ones before this and I'm not going to read what comes after. So then why read this one? You know? Which begs the question of why was this put in the blind date with a book selection? And I was talking to my brother about it and he was even like, yeah, why would you do that? Because it makes it very clear that it's in a series. Like it says right here, a novel of the Dresden Files, and then it says again on the spine, a novel of the Dresden Files. So it's very obvious that this is in a series. And so I'm just not sure why they would choose to include this in there because chances are whoever is picking it up, in this case me, has not read all of the other books to then be able to read this. And also, Jim Butcher's main audience, as far as I am aware, is like middle-aged men, which, because we had a lot of his books at the public library I worked at, and like middle-aged men are who was checking them out. And so I feel like a bookstore and then like a little like pop-up that has a primary audience of women, putting this book in there, it just feels a little like, why would you do that, you know? So I might honestly, I was talking to my brother and he was like, you know, maybe you should just like ask them how they decide what books they're gonna put in there. I'm like, you know, that's not a bad idea because if they like buy their books in bulk and then just wrap them up and send them off, I see how this would end up in here. However, I feel like there should just be a little bit more discernment in what we're putting in there. So I might actually reach out and just say like, hi, I bought one of your books, just like genuinely curious as to how you source the books and like how you decide what gets put in there versus what you just like sell at your bookstore. So I am curious about that and I might end up reaching out and you'll see in this vlog if I end up doing that and if I end up getting a response. But I just feel like this was a bad choice to put in the blind date with a book selection, and then also kind of just like puts a little bad taste in my mouth for ever picking up another blind date with a book because I don't want to end up with another one of these because I paid $26 for this. And I feel like you're really paying more for the experience than you are for the book, unless you end up really liking the book, which could be the case with The Fervor, but was not the case with this. So I'm going to end up having to unhaul this, which means I'm going to have to end up keeping it somewhere until I end up unhauling it. So it just feels like this one was kind of a waste, but also like there was no way to know that until I opened it and read it. And the little description that it gave was a little bit misleading, I want to say, because I feel like even knowing that your audience is majority female and then putting the description that only talks about the woman when that is like the big bad that the main character man is fighting feels a little misleading. So those are my thoughts on this. But anyway, I am now going to look to see how many books are actually in this series, like what this is rated on Goodreads, and we're just going to go from there. But I have my computer here. We're going to pull up Goodreads and we are just going to see what's happening here. I'm going to search this one specifically, Battleground. It is the first one that comes up in the Goodreads search. Let's see. It's got a 4.42 rating, 46,575 ratings, and 4,290 reviews. It was a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for Reader's Favorite Fantasy in 2020. Interesting. So this says it was first published in 2020, but the copyright in here... Oh, I see. Okay. So the actual book itself, Battleground, was copyrighted 2020, so it came out in 2020, but there's a short story in the end that was 2018, that this was just when it was first published. Okay, so this is book number 17. Let's see how many there are actually. Wow, a lot. There are a lot. But then there's also a lot of like short stories in there. Okay, there is a book number 18, and I think 18 is it, because everything that's down here at the end is written by someone else. What is this? Okay, so there's 18 books. There's like weird stuff included at the end that's not this. So let's see, when did book number 18 come out? And does it pick up like right after this? Oh, it does not out yet. It comes out in 2026, so he's still writing this. Harry Dresden, Chicago's only professional wizard, has always managed to save the day. But in this powerful entry in the #1 New York Times best-selling Dresden Files, can he save himself? Oh, here we go. After Harry and his allies narrowly managed to save Chicago from being razed to the ground, everything is different, and it's not just the current lack of electricity. In the battle, Harry lost people he cared about, and that's the kind of loss that takes a toll. Harry being Harry, he's doing his level best to help the city and his friends recover and rebuild, but it's a heavy load and he needs time. But time is the one thing Harry doesn't have. Ghouls are prowling Chicago and taking out innocent civilians. Harry's brother is dying and Harry doesn't know how to help him. And last but certainly not least, the Winter Queen of the Fae has allied with the White Court of Vampires, and Harry's been betrothed to the seductive, deadly vampire Lara Wraith to seal the deal. And we do meet Lara in here, and he did think she was attractive. It's been a tough year. More than ever, the city needs Harry Dresden the wizard. But after loss and grief, is there enough left of Harry Dresden the man to rise to the challenge? I'm not gonna find out. But yeah, because as you can tell just by that, there's like a lot happening. So clearly they beat the big bad, but they do lose people, which would make sense. However, in this, Harry has like a girlfriend, partner woman, and he also has a daughter. Very confusing. You would probably know more if you read any of the other books in the series. But he has this girl, Murphy, who is like his partner, I guess. And like they're romantic with each other, but in the very first chapter, he's like with her and they're like leaning up against each other being all cutesy, and then he has to go fight this Kraken, and Lara, the vampire, shows up and he's like, oh, and her legs were just so distracting. I'm like, dude, your girlfriend is literally watching. So clearly there's something going on there, and then he ends up betrothed to her. What happens to Murphy? Do you think she dies in the battle? Gagged. Anyway, I will not be continuing. I'm glad that people are seeming to enjoy this series, and like this truly just like goes back to the statement that there is a book for every reader, and this is just not the book for me as a reader. And that's totally fine, because I do think that that's totally normal. Like, not every book is for every person. Not every book is for me. Although I am looking at this now, the first book in this series came out in 2000. So he has been writing this for a very long time. I want to read some reviews for this book specifically. Let's see. It's got 46,000 ratings, so clearly it's very popular. Oh, and it's 58% 5-star ratings. Okay, here is a review from a reader who seems like they have read all the other books, but still only gave this one a 2.5 star, and said, a miraculous, all-encompassing book, long battle, which involved almost every single side character we've met to date. I do have to agree with that, even though I've not read any of the other books, but like there's so many characters in here and I did not know any of them. It was expansive, it was action-packed, and it was well-written, a truly cinematic novel of epic proportions. You know, if you're into that sort of thing. And they didn't seem to really enjoy it because it was just like so much going on. So I feel like this is also just like a bad intro to the series. Obviously it's book number 17, but like I didn't really have a choice, you know? Oh, here's another a lot of 2-star reviews are what's showing at the top for me. Interesting. Oh, here's another review, also 2 stars. This book gets 2 stars for reasons that make me want to give up on the series permanently. Story world rule breaking all over the place, insulting and arbitrary dispatch of primary characters, and lack of resolution on the one plot piece that should have been resolved by the end of this book. A piece that now makes no sense to have happened at all, other than to have given the author one fewer person to keep track of during apocalyptic chaos. It seems like a lot of people actually had some problems with this book. Wow, okay, here's another 2-star review. I've been a Harry Dresden fan since the first book, and it takes a heck of a lot to destroy an entire series for me, but Jim Butcher has managed to do just that. Something happens in the middle of this book that just gutted the whole series for me. It was as if all the air and energy went right out of everything, and suddenly I found myself annoyed and tired and bored. Wow. Okay, this is a spoiler, but I don't know that anyone on this channel is interested in this thing, but I am going to read a spoiler for this book. So if you don't want that, I don't know, mute it, I guess. It does in fact say that Murphy gets shot and dies. So I was actually right, and that's what leads to the betrothal to Lara in the next book, which is crazy. But it says, it didn't have to happen, and I've gotten tired of the way Butcher is making the women in Harry's life disposable accessories. Oh, and it lists 2 other women before this. Okay. She was the anchor of the humanity here. Not supernatural, not wizard, not anything but a damned fine human being fighting for her world. She didn't become a Knight of the Cross. What? She didn't do magic, she just stood for what was right and didn't let the monsters win. She was us, and Butcher killed her off for no good reason. Wow. Okay, so clearly people are also, and it seems like all of the female appearing readers, obviously I can't really tell from like the Goodreads profile, are the ones having issues with this, and then more like male presenting readers, again from the Goodreads profile pictures, are really enjoying this. So that's really something, and I think goes to show that yes, the primary audience of this is male readers, which is like totally fine, and I'm glad that they, you know, have something, have a big long series to read. But yeah, I am now solidly in my decision of I'm going to be putting this one down for good. But I mean, if it sounds like something you're interested in, even after I just spoiled it for you a little bit, maybe this is for you, because it's like the writing isn't great and the plot is all over the place, but also I'm coming in at the 17th book in the series, so like who knows really. But yeah, I will be putting this one down for good and never returning to this series or Jim Butcher's writing, most likely. But we still have the fervor to go, and hopefully this will redeem it for us. But I am really looking forward to this. This is something that I would pick up on my own and actually have a higher chance of enjoying, where this is something that I would never pick up in a million years. This is not something, even if it was like, oh, here, you can have this for free, I'd say no thank you. So we'll see. Really a big dichotomy here, and I think that this was actually kind of a really great way for this to go for me. Obviously I would have preferred 2 books that I like would really love, but like something that like I would genuinely like am interested in and would possibly pick up on my own, and something that I never would. And so like I got to experience Jim Butcher's writing and learned that it's really not for me, but I was just assuming that it wasn't for me before this, and now I can say with my full chest, not for me. And next we'll be reading from Alma Katsu, and I'm quite looking forward to this. So it can't be worse. You know, I feel like, actually it could because I have higher expectations for this. This one, I knew I wasn't gonna like. Like I did go in with an open mind and was like, maybe I'll really enjoy it. And I will say, I was intrigued. There were a lot of really interesting characters and like creatures in here, but I'm not gonna read all of that just to continue on, you know, not for me. But this is something that I might genuinely enjoy. So I hope that it works for me. I really hope, but no way to find out until we read. So I'm going to get dinner and then return to this. And I really hope that it doesn't let me down. Last night I did start The Fervor, and I'm on page 87, which is chapter 9, and I am really enjoying it. It is much more complex than the description led me to believe, because this description just talks about Mako and her daughter living in the internment camp, and there's so many more perspectives than that, because we have her and her daughter, but I believe that her daughter also is like a perspective character, because for the most part we just follow Mako and like her, like obviously her daughter is like part of her story, but it looks like chapter 9, the chapter I'm about to start, is going to be from Aiko's perspective, so I'm really curious to see how that goes. But we also have other perspectives, so we have like journal entries from who I believe is Mako's father. I could be wrong there, but he was going to some island to do research on like these winds, and he's encountering something that everyone else in the story is also encountering, but he seemed to have like the first encounter with it and is a scientist, so he's like doing research on it. And then we have Mako's experience in the internment camp with like this sickness that's going on, and when the story starts, the sickness is already in the camp, so it's not like we're watching the sickness unfold. It's already there and it's already spreading, and we're already seeing the effects of that, and how that it is kind of like turning the residents of this camp on each other, and then turning like the guards on the residents as well. And we're just like seeing what life is like in these internment camps, and how all of the Japanese people who are living here are kind of like just like what their daily lives look like here, and how they're just like trying so hard to just be like model citizens to prove that they don't belong here and that like they have nothing to do with the war. And so seeing that, obviously very heavy, but then also we are seeing how this sickness is spreading and how that is like changing things within the camp, and how Mako is kind of like on the front lines fighting this sickness and whatever paranormal thing is going on with it. But then we also have 2 other perspectives of actually where the book started, which really caught me off guard. But we start, well, it starts with the first journal entry, and then it goes into a chapter from this man named Archie, who is some kind of like pastor type figure, and how he is out with his wife and like some kids that they're like taking for the day, and something that looks like a parachute falls from the sky while he's back at the car, and they're like setting up like a picnic site, and it has devastating effects on the people who are there. And we're seeing how Archie is kind of like coping with this and how he is dealing with the after effects of this incident. But then we also have Fran, who is in a completely different state. I believe all three perspectives take place in different states, and how she saw one of these other things fall from the sky while she was having an affair. And she is a journalist, so she's like, no, there's a story here and I'm gonna find out what it is. So we have like Archie, who is dealing with like the firsthand effects of it, Fran, who's investigating it, and then Mako and her daughter, who are in the internment camp, really seeing the effects of the sickness, which may be related to what's happening, and then also just the camp itself. And I'm really enjoying it. The three different perspectives are all very different, but they all add to the story very nicely because they all are like centering on the same thing in a way, just from very different perspectives. And I am enjoying it so much that I don't want to say annotating it, but I did pick up a pencil and start underlining a few things because I really feel like the author like knew what she was setting out to do with this, and she's doing it very well. And a lot of the prisoners, truly is what they are in this internment camp, are realizing that like they don't know what they're going to go back to once, if they get released, because they're talking about how like they set up kind of like a makeshift school within the camp because like all of their kids got pulled out of school when they got sent to these camps. So they're worried about their kids falling behind when they eventually hopefully get released. And so they're just like trying to help their kids stay on track, but also like they're afraid of what happens when they go back out. And there's a paragraph here. So what kept them in the bare board dormitories, overstuffed and tiny, dust-filled, lice-infested rooms was more powerful than guards with rifles. It was fear of what was beyond the fence, the hatred of their fellow American citizens. And that, I think, is something that this period in history is, like, World War II is something that we learned so much about in school, but, like, specifically the Japanese internment camps is something that we kind of, like, gloss over. It's like, yeah, it happened, but, like, we don't really go in depth. So now hearing about it and reading about it in this way is really eye-opening. Like, obviously I knew that this had happened, but I wasn't aware of it in such a hands-on like first perspective way. And obviously this is like a fictionalized perspective of it, but it really just makes it clear that like this was happening to American citizens. And I feel like it's so reminiscent of things that are happening current day with like ICE and then immigration camps and different things like that our current administration is doing. And it just feels like truly, if we do not learn from history, we will repeat it. And it's just so awful. And there's another quote on the next page: how exhausting it must be here to hate everyone who is different. And that is just like, I read that and I just had to sit for a second. I was like, we have not progressed anywhere. We have not made any progress with anything. And it's just devastating to like read what was happening then and then just reflect on what's happening now and be like, wow, okay. So clearly I am enjoying it. It's definitely heavy because I also feel like it's interesting. My thoughts are kind of all over the place, but it's very interesting because like, yes, it's taking place in this camp, but the camp is kind of just like the backdrop and the setting for what's happening and is kind of like the vessel for the story, which I think is really fascinating, but I am really enjoying it. I'm just looking through because I know there were other things that I underlined. So here's another one. It was easier for the public to forget about the inhumane thing that was being done in their name. Out of sight, out of mind. And that's why these camps were put in like the middle of nowhere in like Idaho. And then when Mako starts like uncovering kind of what's happening and seeing her daughter is kind of having these like visions where she says like this demon is talking to her, and she says, looking to the fantastical for answers because nothing made sense anymore. Not when your government could lock you up without reason and your neighbors, people you thought were your friends, stood by and did nothing to stop them. And so just everything about this is just really, really working for me. And you can tell that the author really did her research to make this feel very real and like true to the experience. I'm just absolutely loving it. And even though it's kind of a hard read, and the horror in here is like genuinely scary. Like it has to do with like these little like spiders, and I was reading it last night and like a piece of hair drifted onto my arm and like just kind of like drifted down, and it felt like a spider crawling on my arm, and that was horrible. I really didn't like that. Found another quote. This one unrelated to anything else really, but did men have any idea how it felt to be a woman? They seem to have no read whatsoever on whether you were in the mood for some fun or ready to cut their dick off. And I just really enjoyed that because all of the characters in here have like something going on with them, but they all have such interesting things to add to the story. And I'm really enjoying it. And here's another quote that I underlined simply because it felt all too true to what we're experiencing now. And it says, America was not Nazi Germany, rounding up citizens in camps in order to kill them. It was impossible. It went against everything America stood for, everything Americans said they stood for. And I mean, that's exactly what's happening right now. So it's just like, clearly, like, it's just making it, like, adding a layer of devastation to it, knowing that, like, we have not learned from what we've done in the past, and we are continuing to do the same things. So, having a time with this one, but I will say, I am really enjoying it. It is scary. The horror is horrifying because we have Mako and her daughter in this internment camp, and so we're seeing, like, everything that goes on there, and, like, that alone, horror, right? But then we're also dealing with, like, her being a single woman there, and, like, the horror that that opens her up to as well, and then also her as a mother and how she's just so afraid for her daughter constantly, and she, like, knows that she's, like, the last line of defense between her and her daughter, between, like, the world and her daughter, and how she's trying really hard for that. But then we have Archie, who just experienced this horrifying event, and things just keep getting worse for him. And, like, as a white man, he obviously is not experiencing as nearly as much as Mako and her daughter, but, like, what he experienced in this, like, incident was crazy and genuinely horrifying. And then we have Fran, who, she is really just, like, fighting for her place as a woman and trying to, like, make this story into something that will, like, push her career forward. So seeing how it has, like, taken people from Archie and it's doing horrible things to the Japanese Americans in the internment camps, and then Fran's using it to, like, further her career, which, like, yes, in that context, not great, but also she knows that, like, this is her way to prove herself to the other people at this newspaper that she works for and get herself out of, like, the women's column. And so it's like, you want her to succeed, but, like, at what cost, you know? And the synopsis of the book does not say anything about the other. Oh, okay. See, here's where I was led astray. It does say Mako and her daughter team up with a newspaper reporter and widowed missionary to investigate, and it becomes clear to them that something more sinister is afoot. So, yes. So then Fran is the newspaper reporter and Archie is the widowed missionary. However, it doesn't say anything about them, like, also having perspective, so I just really wasn't expecting that, but I am really enjoying it, and I'm curious to see how all three of their stories kind of end up intertwining and coming together. But that's where I'm at so far. I'm, like, 25-ish% through, so I'm just gonna keep reading today and hope that it doesn't get too much scarier than that, because it genuinely, I feel like sometimes reading horror for me is not as gripping as, like, watching it, because I feel like the auditory aspect of it is a lot of times what, like, really gets me, because, like, you know, they put those, like, creepy little sound effects in there that are, like, meant to, like, get your heart pumping, but this, something about it is just really doing it. And I think it's just the way that it feels so big and all-encompassing, and how it's taking place in so many different areas, not just, like, contained to one person or to, like, one area, that it just feels like you can't escape it, and that's horrifying. Also, it's spiders, you know, so it's just, it's really working for me, but also, like, I'm loving the writing of it, and so clearly Omakatsu is an author for me. So I'm curious to see how it ends up, like, wrapping up, because it feels so big and, like, all consuming and all encompassing. I'm curious to see how we defeat it or escape it, but I won't know until I continue reading. Hello, it is the next evening and I have finished The Fervor, and I enjoyed it. I did have a good time, but I think it's going to be like a 3.5 star. I don't really do quarter star ratings, but if I did, this would be 3.75. So I'll probably just, like, round up to a 4 in my reviews, but it is going to be a 3.75 for me, just because I really liked aspects of it, but I don't know, it just didn't, I'm not really even sure how to explain it, because, like, it was a good book. Something about it just, it felt like something was missing. I don't know. I feel like really what I think it is that going into this with, like, the mindset of horror, I was ready to be scared. I'm like, I don't like spiders, okay? And so this, like, it did that, but I feel like it was definitely more, like, historical fiction than horror, and that might be how it's actually categorized, and just, like, for the sake of, like, the blind date with the book, they put it as a horror. That just might be what it is, but because I have no other information to go on, I was thinking it was a horror, and it didn't really feel like it. It felt definitely more historical, and, like, historical horror is a thing, but it felt more historical fiction with, like, thriller elements, I would say. I don't read a whole lot of thrillers though, so I could be off base on that. But I feel like horror is not the way to classify this, because I kept waiting for like something to happen that was like scary and was like a big something. I don't know. I was waiting for more, and then there wasn't more, and that could just be because I went in thinking, okay, this is a horror and it's going to be like genuinely like horror, and then it wasn't. So that could just be on me and the way that this was marketed to me specifically, but I did really enjoy it. If we're considering it as a horror, the horror in here is like fear-mongering in the American people, and especially during times of turmoil, and how that turns into like hate for specific groups. And there's an afterword where the author was talking about how she wrote this like during COVID, where there was another uptick of violence against Asian Americans because of COVID, and how she's using this book and these historical events as like a reflection for what we're currently going through, which makes what I said before about how it feels so like present and so prescient with everything that we're seeing right now, with like the hate towards different populations, feel very much like, okay, yes, this is what she was trying to do. So I did really enjoy that, and it was a very interesting story, and I did really enjoy it. But I think because I was expecting it to be horror, I kept waiting for more and for it to be bigger. But I think had I not had that going in, I think I would have enjoyed it more, honestly. And I will say the synopsis of the book that's like in the book that talks about Mako and her daughter teaming up with a newspaper reporter and a widowed missionary to investigate, I don't know, I just feel like when I was reading it, I was like, oh, I don't know how all of these like stories are going to intertwine. And it wasn't until like the last like 50-ish pages that they actually all started working together. And even then, the way they worked together was just like, we're all in this together, we all gotta like try and stay safe together, not so much investigating together, you know? Like they all had a piece of the puzzle that they all just had to kind of put together, so it wasn't so much investigating together. And then because of the synopsis, I also wasn't expecting it to be the 3, technically 5 perspectives, because we had Mako as like in the camp dealing with the sickness firsthand, then we had Archie, the pastor guy, and him having a firsthand experience, and then Fran, the reporter, trying to get the story. But then we also had the perspective of Mako's daughter, Aiko, and then also we had some like in-between chapters of journal, like the diary entries of confirmed Mako's father doing his research like 20 years prior. So there's 5 perspectives in here, and the synopsis did not give that away in the slightest. So sorry if I spoiled that for you, but I wasn't expecting it, and it really added to the story, because I don't think that any one of the plots could have stood on its own, which is why I think they're all together, and it works really well in that way. But yeah, it's gonna be a 3.75 for me, rounded up to a 4, because I enjoyed a lot of it. I really liked the writing, and it was truly like, it felt like holding up a mirror to like what we're currently going through. And I can only imagine reading this in 2020, like at the peak of COVID and at the peak of all of the hate crimes that were going on against Asian Americans, this would have hit like extra hard, and I can totally see exactly what that would have done. But reading it now, even still, yeah, I can really see it. And it's just like how fear leads people into hate, and fear becomes hate so quickly because it's easy. It's harder to stand up and be a good person than it is to do the right thing sometimes. And this was like a really great representation of that, and I really liked the messaging it had. But 3.75, just because, again, I think just because the expectations I went into it with, I expected it to be bigger and more explosive, I guess. But I did really enjoy this. So that means we will now, also the sticker that it came with, completely, but the sticker it came with the spider, that, yeah, I was using that as my bookmark, but, So now I'm going to go to Goodreads and actually look up the rating, see what it's actually classified as in here. It has a star rating of 3.62 with 5,084 ratings and 920 reviews, and it's also a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for Reader's Favorite Horror in 2022, which, interesting, because I don't know that I would really classify it as horror, like I just said, but the genres it's tagged under is horror, historical fiction, fiction, historical, thriller, fantasy, and adult. So that's interesting. The synopsis is all the same. Oh, there's different cover editions that are really cool. It's got a majority 4-star rating with 41% 4 stars. Okay, so I feel like I'm very much in line with what everyone else was thinking on this. So now that we have read both of the books, I think it's interesting that both of the books that I got, completely different books, were both Goodreads Choice Award nominees. I think that's really interesting. But I think this was a good reflection of doing the blind date with a book. Now, is there a chance that you're going to find your new favorite book in here? Yes, of course. But for me, that didn't happen. The fervor was actually quite interesting, and I did really enjoy this. And I don't know that this is something I would have picked up outside of getting it from this, because Alma Katsu is an author that I'm interested in reading other things from, but I'm more interested in reading other things, right? But I will say I did enjoy this for its depictions of a period in history that I'm not as familiar with, which I think all of her books have like historical elements to them, like are spins on historical events. So they also all have the same naming conventions, which I really quite like, except Red Widow is the only one that's different. But let's see, because The Hunger and The Deep, I know The Hunger is about the Donner Party, which was a historical event, so let's see about The Deep. It does say historical fiction too, so she has a genre that she's writing in. But I do feel like this is a good way to like explore things outside of your comfort zone and pick up things that you probably wouldn't pick up on your own. But for me, I just feel like, I don't want to say it's not worth it, but these books were each priced at $26 each, which is cheaper than like a hardcover. I think The Fervor would have cost $27, and then Battleground would have cost $28 if I were to just buy them for myself. But the thing is, I wouldn't have bought these for myself, you know? So it's like, I really enjoyed the experience, but now I have these two books that like first one DNF'd because I'm not reading the 17th book in a series, and then this one I enjoyed, and like I'll probably keep it on my shelf for like a little bit of time because my brother might be interested in it, but it's not something that I am going to hold on to for a long time, you know, because it's not something that I loved. So while I do think this is like a fun experience and that's fun to do every once in a while, I cannot see myself doing this with a whole lot of frequency, just because it is kind of pricey, especially to buy a book that I don't know if I'm actually going to like. And then also just because, again, I don't know if it's a book I'm going to like. And then you also run the chance of getting a book that you've already read. So while I enjoyed the experience, I'm not sure that I will continue to pick these up. Now, if I'm out somewhere and I see someone, there was at this little market that I got it from, it was like an adult book fair that was like, just had a whole bunch of different like vendors for like bookish things specifically. There was another vendor who had sold out by the time I got there, and she was selling Blind Date with the Books, but hers were like $40 each, and she like decked them out with like so much stuff in there. So like as an experience, I think I would do it, but like lowering my expectations of the books that are included. Now, that being said, I did end up reaching out to the Midnight Reader shop where I got these and just asked some questions about their business, because they have like an actual like brick and mortar store that I haven't been to but seems like really fantastic, and everyone that I interacted with at their little booth was super nice. And like these, like clearly a lot of thought went into these, and like a lot of care and like love went into making them. And even while the books that I got weren't things that I necessarily loved, I still had a lot of fun with the experience. So I thought we could do a little like shout out for this business. I would love to help a small business out if possible, because they do have an online store where you can buy their Blind Date with the Books, and you can pick like genre, paperback, hardcover, all the different things that you get to pick in person. You just get to do it online. So while you don't have as much control over like how I had like the little slips that like gave a little description, you get to still pick your genre. So I thought I will link them down below as well, but now I'm just going to read the responses to my questions. So I started just by asking, how did you / what made you decide to start selling the Blind Date with the Book experience? And the owner, Cara, said that she started the business because of an accidental fall that caused her to break her ankle. She had a second surgery that made it so she couldn't walk for another 3 months. She was bored, feeling helpless, and wanted to do something that would be helpful for her family. And she loved reading, so she thought shopping for, wrapping, and decorating books would be fun. She started selling on TikTok, and then their videos went semi-viral, and they started selling so much that they took the business on full time. After a year of working out of their home, her and her husband decided to move into a local building and turn it into a storefront with a bookstore and coffee shop. Sounds amazing, living like the bookish dream right there. They still sell their blind dates online and in-store, but focus mostly on our storefront and making it a fun experience. So I will have their whole website linked down below, as well as I think I'll do their Instagram so you can see what they've got going on. And then I asked, how do you decide what books to include in your selections? Do you mainly include popular newer titles, whatever you can get your hands on, or books you are interested in? And she said, we try to include some popular books, but we are more concerned about the content. We make sure each book is rated above 3 stars on Goodreads, and when we get the books in, we make sure they are in good condition. We use a remaindered wholesaler to get books at a discounted price to keep the books at a reasonable price for the blind dates, so we are also limited to what we can get based on what they have available. They make the magnetic bookmarks and reading logs that we include in each book, which I think is super cool, because those reading logs are like really cool, and I like how big they are and like how much stuff you can fit on there. So I was correct in thinking that they would get them from a wholesaler, which does make sense, because like if they were to just go out and buy these books like all like from a bookstore, they would have to be priced so much higher, and then people probably wouldn't want to take the risk of getting something that they don't know what it is and like don't know if they're going to like. So I do completely understand getting it from a wholesaler, and like that makes the most sense. And I also really like how they make sure that all the books have above a 3-star rating on Goodreads, so they're not putting in something that's like universally disliked. So I do enjoy that. However, I will say that like I can see where that would like lead you astray, especially with like something like Battleground, where it's in a series, so it's gonna have a higher rating because people who are picking it up are continuing on with the series and then already have like a vested interest in it, you know? So also ratings can just be kind of subjective, but I do like that they at least check to make sure that they're not like bad books, you know? So I was correct on that, and I do see then how that would end up with things like Battleground. And I will say, if I was like interested in that series and got that, I'd be excited. I'd be like, oh, how exciting. I got a book that I'm probably already going to pick up because I'm interested in this series, maybe one in a series that'll take me a little bit longer to get to, but I already have it, got it for a discounted price, and it came with all this fun stuff. So I can see how for some people that would be exciting. And the thing is, I could have read that and still understood kind of what was happening and like had a decent time with it. I just knew that for me, that's not what I wanted to do. So that's that on that. And then finally, I asked, what has the response to your business been? Do customers seem excited about your offerings? And then she said, people are very excited about our blind dates. They always love all the extras that they get in each blind date, the highlighter, magnetic bookmark, and reading log with annotating tabs. They also love selecting between different books in genre to help with decision paralysis for having to choose a new book to read. And I think that that's a take on it that I hadn't thought of, because as a mood reader, I kind of just like pick up whatever I'm feeling. But if you are experiencing like a decision fatigue, if you pick up like a blind date with a book, you don't really have to make the decision. You just pick like, oh, I like the stickers or things that are in this one. So you get that, and then there's your next read. And also, especially if you're getting a hardcover, they're priced cheaper than most hardcovers, so you're also getting a deal. So yeah, I'm really glad that I reached out to her. Definitely check out their shop. They do sell online if you're interested, because I find that finding blind date with the books is like sometimes a little challenging. Like I know my Barnes and Noble sells them, but then again, I'm paying full price for a book that I don't know if I'm gonna like. And also they do a lot of classics, which like is totally fine. But like if I'm picking up a book for like the experience, I don't know that I really want a classic. This is definitely a great route to go if you're looking for a blind date with the book. But that is my experience on that. And when originally planning this video, at the end of the video, I wanted to have like a decisive like, yes, I would do this again, or no, I wouldn't do this again. And I feel like I'm kind of somewhere in the middle where like I had a lot of fun, but I don't know that I'd seek another one out, you know? If I was out somewhere like another bookish event and I saw a table that had them, I might be interested in meandering, picking one up, seeing what their options are, and then going from there. But I don't know that I would seek them out and like buy one online for myself again, just because I'm very selective with my books, especially because I have a lot of books on my shelves that are older, that are things that I wouldn't necessarily pick up now. So I'm kind of already having that same or a similar type of experience of like picking up things that are a little bit outside of my comfort zone now. But I also know that at one time I was interested in them, so I have a higher chance of actually liking them. Well, I had a decent win here. We also had kind of a loss with the Battleground. So I'm not really sure. I feel like it was definitely a lot of fun, like opening them and like having all the little things that came with it. A lot of fun. I just don't know that I necessarily would be willing to do it again, you know, because I feel like the novelty of it has worn off. So I'm curious if you do, like if you buy blind date with the books, do you buy them like frequently, or is it was like a one time, like but I wonder, like especially like customers of this shop, I wonder, are they like repeat customers who like come back for more? And if you're buying them for the sake of like decision paralysis, then maybe you are. But for me, I feel like this was like a fun one-time like experience type thing. So I might be interested again, like if I come across one from like a small business, I might be willing. Let's be so realistic, I probably will pick one up just because it is so fun, like not knowing what you're gonna get. It has the same allure of like a blind box, but it's a book. So it's not just like you open it, oh, here it is. You open it and then you also get the experience of reading the book. So I don't know, I did have a lot of fun. I did technically read 2 books that I normally would not have picked up for myself, and I did really enjoy one of them. So I don't know, I feel like this was overall a success. It's just, I know it's not always going to be a success. So like my experience doesn't mean that you will also have a good experience, because you could get something and you pick it up and you're like, what is this, you know? So, I mean, like, judge for yourself if you think that picking up a blind date with a book is for you. But, like, I had a lot of fun. If your reading taste is, like, very particular and you're very picky about what you read, this probably isn't for you, but you probably already know that. So if you're just looking, like, for something fun, a new way to, like, maybe try out a new author, try out a new genre, this could be a fun way to do it, you know? Especially because all these books have technically been vetted to make sure that they have above a 3-star rating and are in good condition. This might be a really great way for you to try out a new genre, try out a new author, just, you know, see what else is out there. So highly recommend checking out the Midnight Reader Shop. If I see them at another event, I will probably pick up another book, because I did have a lot of fun. I like the like reading log with the matching tab and highlighter. Like there's just a lot of fun elements of it, so that even if the book itself isn't super great, you still, it feels more like paying for an experience than paying for the item, you know? Because like the experience of like picking out which one you want and then unwrapping it and seeing what you get and like getting all like the little like trinkety things that go with it is honestly almost as fun as reading the book as well. So I feel like this was a lot of fun for me, and I'm really glad to have done it. It did take me months to actually open them because I was like building the suspense in my head, but I had a lot of fun and read 2 books that I probably wouldn't have picked up otherwise. So I would say overall this was a success, and the blind date with the book experiment was really fun for me and did really work for me. So that is my consensus on that, if you were wondering what my opinion was. But that does bring us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you in another video again soon. Bye.